Well, I guess that should take us into our first segment of today's interview, which is the system breakdown. And
Yes.
I really want to dive into the one best performing Scrappy system that you have worked on in your career. It could be one that you yourself have implemented, one that you have been, part of a team of implementing with a team. Yeah, tell me us about.
I mean, it's something I haven't. It's a recent thing. I haven't actually done anything very intentional for a long time. Um, but recently, focusing on content repurposing has been wildly game changing for me. And I know you can relate to this because I saw you post something about this not too long ago. Um, but I think specifically for freelancers or people who don't have a whole team, um, content creation can become such an Everest to summit. Um, and I think what what makes it even harder is in content creation, whether it's like blogs, newsletters, even just posting to LinkedIn, uploading portfolio work, whatever it is. The big difficulty is it's a long game. So to have the motivation to continue doing it regularly is really hard. Um, and then on top of that, coming up with new ideas and all that stuff. So it can be a system that dies very quickly. But if you do content creation within content repurposing, that is wildly useful. Because you essentially create one piece of content and you disseminate it and distribute it into 4, 5, 10, 20 different forms and formats. So yeah, I mean, that's like, it's time saving. It's a lot of like mental load. Also, I am a big believer in the fact that the fact that content repurposing is, dare I say, more effective than just creating a lot of content. Um, there's a TED talk on this, but essentially, like a lot of people, we respond to things differently. So like how a piece of content might land for you might not land for me, and vice versa. And by doing content, repurposing a piece of content into a poll, a quiz, a short piece, a personal anecdote, even if it's the same thing, um, it you're reaching more people because it's different forms and formats of the same message, and that just creates a lot more resonance. Especially if someone sees the first one, doesn't really get it, sees the second one, then something clicks. And keeping that thread and twisting it and reshaping and reforming it can be super effective from that point of view.
I'm going to not make a specific quote because I will lie, but I think it's about like people have to see something like 6 or 7 times before they're actually ready.
Exactly.
So it makes a lot of sense to take one thing and put a lot of effort into it. Like you say, I've been doing that recently. That's actually how I distributed last month's Scrappy system, and by like completely redistributing it. But as you did mention, you did kind of give a nice definition of what content redistribution is, but like, what made you realize like that it is impactful? You can say things are, but what helped you really understand like that this is like a real superpower?
I think there's two layers to that. There's impactful for me and there's impactful for my audience. I'm going to give a quick answer to both. Firstly, impactful for me, it became very apparent when I started. So I've got a newsletter, and the newsletter is fun for me because I like writing longer form pieces. My default was to just publish the post and then share the link on wherever, LinkedIn. And I'd write like a little caption, whatever. Firstly, I didn't feel like it was giving much value because I was basically just telling people, read the post. And sure, I could have written like TLDR in the LinkedIn caption and people would have gotten the gist. But it was then not, I wasn't doing anything else with it. I was just like putting it out as a link and hoping people would read, hoping I would get an extra subscriber. And then I was like, oh, I need to write another blog post now because nothing happened with that one. And that was like, starting from scratch, a whole nother slog. And then I was just like, at some point, flip, I've got so many blog posts where I genuinely believe in that stuff is valuable. But I do one thing with it and it sits there. And I just like hope and pray. And hoping and praying doesn't help. And so for me, it was impactful because I was like, cool, I get to re-dive into that content. I get to pull insights out of it. I get to not, and I think this is the key here, is that I didn't have to sit down to start a new blog post, but I could just sit down to use what I had already done, the 2-3 hours of work that I'd put in, and turn little snippets into quotes, or create a graphic from a paragraph, or maybe I had an infographic or a statistic or something, and I can turn that into a carousel or something. So like massively time saving. And from that, the same amount of time I would have done one extra blog post and one extra LinkedIn share, and now had 10 pieces of content. So widely impactful for me. And then the impact for my audience was just, I think, as you said, people needing to see the same thing a number of times before it fits or makes sense or lands. And it's just interesting. It was interesting to see how same content, different formats, but someone who didn't comment on the first one commented on the second one, or people who liked the first one didn't like the second one. And that's when you start to see, okay, things are resonating in different ways with different people, which is fine. It doesn't have to land for everyone, but it just gives you a sense of like knowing, and maybe this sort of ties into targeting a little bit, targeting audience. If you do that often enough, you start to get a feel for what kinds of people are reacting to what kinds of pieces of content, or forms and shapes of content. And then you can start to be strategic about it if you want at some point. If you want to now target more of the creatives, what kinds of content repurposing works from whatever you've created. And all in all, to summarize, I feel like it really helps with intentionality. And because it's more intentional for me, it's more authentic for the people reading it. Everyone will post a link and hope people get it. That doesn't speak to me as a customer, as a consumer.
Yeah, I can so relate. Like, I've recently been feeling the pains of just being on that content wheel of like, I feel like I'm just producing unique, novel things, and then how it just goes out on Instagram once, and then no one or one person sees it, and then like your soul is crushed and destroyed, and you don't want to spend any more time doing that kind of thing, especially if marketing is already difficult for you. And so in that regard, what kind of content is ripe for repurposing? Because, I think, are there different types? Can anything be repurposed? How do you figure that out?
Yeah, definitely. I think everything can be repurposed. The simplest solution everyone has access to is giving it to ChatGPT and saying, what else can I do with this? You get a whole bunch of ideas just from that. I think the next phase after that, because like the idea generation with ChatGPT is great, I wouldn't do everything it says. I think the next step is your own processing and filtering of that. If it's not something you normally do, don't do it. Like if you're not the type to create polls or like quizzes and stuff, like just leave that out. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And I think that is just a gut feel of like what feels like me, what do people expect from me, what do people need from me, what actually is valuable to the people I'm trying to speak to. But in terms of content that can be repurposed, I genuinely think everything. And often, I think the first few times will be a little bit like grunt worky, grind worky until you start getting a feeling for how you can repurpose it. It's not always clear or obvious. A blog post is super easy because you can cut it up, you can shorten it, you can lengthen it, add it as a PDF, make a character, easy. But if I've done a little table framework for, I don't know, how to repurpose content, it's like it feels very static. And then you have to be a bit more creative for how you repurpose it. Yeah, but I think generally speaking, everything can be repurposed.
I love that. I mean, because it can, but the creative thing is important there to that point.
Mhm.
And I guess Carl actually put a question in the comments about this, which we'll get to a little bit later. But
Oh yes, love that.
how do you have like a repurposing formula or process that you can share with us that you use right now, so that we can just visualize what one example can be distributed, repurposed as?
Yeah, I mean, if we take the example of writing a blog post or an article, no matter how short or long, it could even just be something you want to post on LinkedIn, a story. I generally put on different hats as a first step. So once I've created the first piece of content, I'll then test out wearing a few different hats. And I think, okay, like if this blog post is like, I don't know, 500 words, I'm someone who hates reading. Cool. Is there something that I can graphicize and visualize? Is there a thing I can, even if it's just one sentence on a colored background that like is the key message, and then you've got a graphic done. And then, put on a different hat. Maybe it's someone who's like I need the statistics and the credibility and the citations. I need those up front. Cool. If I reference a TED talk, I can post the link to the TED talk and be like, hey, this is what I used for the latest article I wrote. These are the parts I really liked. Then you can wear the hat of someone who is looking to be a thought leader in their own network. Great. Here are like three, like a carousel or something, or even just another post of like, here are like 3 quotes you can steal for your next stand-up. And really just like swapping out all kinds of different hats. Again, ChatGPT is really great at prompting you for this if you don't know what hat to wear. And then it's literally just saying it as bluntly as I've just said it. I have this piece of content. I need to repurpose it. I need to wear different hats to know how to repurpose it. Can you prompt me on different hats I could wear? And yeah, doing that thought experiment is really good. The actual execution thereafter obviously depends on your skill set and your goals. But those are generally like very practically the initial steps. And then after that, it's a case of actually knocking them out as a thing. And I also don't think there's a rule of thumb for like a number. Again, I don't try to force it. If there's only one way to repurpose it, that's fine. It doesn't have to be, it's like trying to draw blood from a stone.
I really love that idea of putting on the different hats. Like it actually, I mean, I suppose you could also put on the different hats of your different customer personas or the different kinds of problems that, people would encounter. One person might encounter, you could approach it from that different angle. I really like that way of thinking about it. I didn't think about it like that because initially, I think a lot of people think with content repurposing, you have to upfront have a plan of how you're going to, use this content, where it's going to go, where you're going to post it, how you're going to use it. And I think ChatGPT is actually, especially as a solopreneur, like you don't even have to use the free version. If you can share your transcript, it can help, as you said.
Yeah. 100%.
Amazing. And what is the like? Have you ever? Okay, so have you ever had like a moment where you're like, oh, this works so well, and the content is really working? What kind of has that happened for you?
Yeah, I think, and this is maybe not exactly the answer you were thinking of, but I really want to bring it in here because I think these moments happen a lot more when you have the right tool. And content repurposing is one thing. When I really start hitting that flow state, is when, okay, take a step back. I've got a piece of content. I've created 5 new pieces of content from it. Big win already. Then the anxiety creeps in of like, "Ah, okay, now I need to like post it 5 times. Or like I need to get these, pieces out. Then I need to remember to do it here, here, and here. That's like more context switching in my week that I have to remember. And I think the irritating thing about doing it that way is you've added this like separation of time between each of those posts. And I'm sure it works for some people and doesn't work for other people. It doesn't work for me. I'd like that part of the process to all happen at one point. Because then I'm like building on the posts one after the other. I don't have to think, what did I post 2 days ago? What did I write? What hashtags did I use? How did I frame it? And that's why Buffer has been super useful for me. It's a post scheduling tool. It's a free version. There's a free version where you can do 3 profiles. I don't need more than 3. I think most people don't. You can essentially do your personal LinkedIn, your company LinkedIn, and your Instagram if you have that. I've got my 2 Blue Sky accounts and my LinkedIn profile, my personal one. But the power in that is I can basically plan between 1 and 2 weeks of content. I can visualize like this goes out on Monday, this goes out on Wednesday. So I've got that like Scrappy Systems webinar on Thursday, so I can post something in the morning. And I've got all of that thinking and all of that conceptualizing, visualizing of like, what happens when with this piece of content. And I can almost like build a narrative in one go and not have to context switch throughout the week or through over 2 weeks to do it. And that's like a 2-hour scheduling of like 2-hour block on my Monday or 2-hour block on my Friday. And then 2 weeks are done and I can just let it happen. And then you reevaluate after those 2 weeks. I think that's another benefit is you don't feel reactive to each post. If this engagement doesn't do well, then you stress and you have to do the next one. Or you have to get the next one better or do something like rather let a whole set run for 2 weeks, check the engagement over those 2 weeks, do like a mini retrospective with yourself, and then test. Like doing those kinds of iterative chunks also just take the mental load of like needing to tap into check the likes on the day every day of social media, and like it just ends up becoming way too much mental admin for me.
I can imagine you can also then get deeper into a subject because you're not just
Exactly.
here's a blog post right away, here's another blog post, here's another blog post. You're actually like using that almost like a season to dive into that topic and prove that you're credible and prove that you understand the problem and the solution. And I really like that. I was surprised because I took basically a 1-hour Scrappy Systems video and I was able to distribute it into 8 different posts for social media over the last month. That's 2 posts a week, which is like, I'm happy with that. You know, like easy.
Right. And if you do that with 3 other pieces of content, theoretically you could have up to 8 posts a week for 3 pieces of content. Like it ends up just being very compounding in terms of the time you save. If you repurpose 1 piece of content, that saves like 5%. If you do 2 pieces of content, that's like 20%. But it really, really helps in that sense. I think I can imagine the pushback or the difficulty is cool, but I still need content, right? So I think like you need the initial piece of content to do the content repurposing. And I think what's also quite fun to do is, and I after having this marketing system in mind now, when I'm creating a piece of content now, I'm already thinking like, how could I potentially repurpose this later? So you're almost like building in the thinking or baking in the thinking at the start of the content process. It helps like future me not have to do so much thinking down the line.
And those are systems you can sell, like those are systems those are services you sell over time. I mean, you say you're working with events right now. It's probably, you probably have a pretty polished event briefing system, and all the sizes and the templates that you need to design